Rensford De Haan grew up in Guyana, a place that shaped him in ways he still feels today. It sits at the northern edge of South America, but culturally, Guyana is deeply Caribbean. It's a country of heat and color, cane fields and coastline, rich in tradition, music, and strong community. About a third of the population, including Rensford, is Black of African descent. For him, childhood meant freedom.
You remember your days of running into the cane field and spending half a day or sometime all day in the cane field, or just going into what we call the back dam, which is the farmlands, and just spending the day eating fruits all day, whatever fruit is in season.
Rensford was a curious kid.
I was the kid that took everything apart. My adopted mom once left me to go shopping, and she came back and she found the transistor radio in pieces. Why? Because I asked her how is the voice coming through the radio, and she told me that there's a little man in it. So, so I went looking for the little man.
Rensford was always in motion. He played just about every sport he could, even representing Guyana in competitive amateur boxing. Music was just as much a part of his life. So when he heard the military was recruiting musicians for its marching band, he grabbed his clarinet and enlisted.
I often tell people I spent 7 years in the military, and those are 7 years that I would never trade for anything. And those bonds are lifelong. Musician friends.
So these are like brothers to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Those years in the military gave him something that lasted far beyond service, lifelong friendships and bonds that never fade. And yet inside all those good memories, there was something else, something none of them saw coming. For reasons that would only become clear much later, prostate cancer would quietly weave itself through that brotherhood. It's a disease that affects twice as many Black men as white men, a statistic that went largely unnoticed until it came for 4 of Rensford's military buddies. Then, it came for him. This is Carry the Fire, a podcast by the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation featuring inspiring personal stories about what happens when world-leading doctors, researchers, and their patients come together to ignite breakthroughs in cancer diagnostics, research, and treatment. This is a podcast about innovation and radical hope. I'm your host, Lisa Laflamme. In this episode, prostate cancer, its outsized impact on underserved communities, and the effort bringing early detection to those most at risk. Rensford De Haan moved to Canada in 1994 at 25. He was propelled by 2 powerful forces, love and curiosity. He followed his girlfriend to Toronto and quickly fell for something else, too. The skyline, the possibility, and yes, the CN Tower.
I did a paper of it when it had just opened in high school. And so it had always been a part of me. So I know the geographic of Canada.
And what was it like when you arrived in Toronto and saw the CN Tower for the first time?
It was fabulous. That is the only building I actually looked up at. I never wanted to look up at any other, but I don't want to look like a stranger, We got something we say back home, never see, come for see,
So don't look like a tourist.
Yeah, don't look like a
don't
tourist,
play the
right?
tourist.
But the CN Tower couldn't help it.
Yeah. Did you go up to the top?
Yeah. I've actually walked up to the top.
Of course you have. How many steps again? Something insane.
1,776.
That is amazing. Rensford and his girlfriend got married and began building a life from scratch. They raised children, and he found his rhythm in the kitchen, carving out a career as a chef.
One of the biggest joys to watch people just sit down and eat what I created.
So what's your specialty?
I am trained in French cuisine. So what I'd like to do is fuse French cuisine with my cultural cuisine, with the Guyanese cuisine.
I love that too, so I can't wait to enjoy some of your recipes. But he wasn't just reading recipes. At some point, Rensford came across a medical study from the late 1990s. It highlighted the disproportionate number of Black men diagnosed with prostate cancer, findings that were reinforced in other studies in the early 2000s. He brought the subject up with his friends.
We used to sit and talk about it once in a while and make jokes.
Is that right?
Because we always talk about the finger.
So that is something guys talk about.
Yes.
Beneath the jokes, though, was something much more complicated. The prostate cancer test itself, the DRE, a digital rectal exam.
The stigma behind it, all right? It's a 3-second, 5-second type of examination. But the mere idea that, a doctor is going to use his finger to do that amongst Black men, Black Caribbean men, doesn't sit well.
And you think that is why we're seeing, one of the reasons we see a higher...
The neglect of it.
The stigma.
Yes.
Rensford also told them that during the 1990s, things had actually started to change. In most cases, doctors were replacing the old exam with a simple blood draw, a test called the PSA, prostate-specific antigen blood test. The physical exam was essentially reserved now for patients with low PSAs, but symptoms still showing up. Even with that shift, the stigma lingered. How do men in your community in general think about cancer?
I know that it's real, but I think the whole thing of Black men is far deeper than just cancer. It's about their bodies, about taking care of themselves. A lot of us, and I use us broadly, have this thing, if I don't know, I don't care.
So you're saying that what keeps some men from being tested is perhaps not wanting
to know.
And whatever happens, happens.
Happens. Seriously.
For Rensford, it wasn't enough to just know the risks. He wanted to act. In 2018, after reading new studies showing a genetic predisposition in Black men for prostate cancer, he decided to get tested. The results came back clear, and he went on with life. Around that same time, he also felt the pull of home. Rensford returned to Guyana, looking for new professional opportunities and a chance to reconnect with his roots.
And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back home and going to start with catering and then work my way up to building my little small restaurant.
And at what moment do you realize something just doesn't feel right?
Well, everything was going good. I got some contracts. I was doing okay, building myself, building my brand. And this happened in 2020. I started experiencing some discomfort and stuff, and didn't take it for much. Guys, I'm a military guy, so you don't run to the doctor for everything. But it persisted and started getting worse, and then they found a tumor in my abdomen.
The promise of better health care had Rensford back on a plane to Toronto. He had the tumor removed, avoided radiation and chemo, and committed to regular screenings. Health had never felt more urgent, but in the swirl of treatment and recovery for abdominal cancer, one important thing was overlooked. He stopped getting tested for prostate cancer, the same thing showing up in 4 of his friends.
By the time they found out, it was late, especially the 3 that happened in Guyana, because, the facilities are not there.
Those must have been some pretty tough funerals. Were you able to be there?
I wasn't able to be at all, but it was tough. The videos that I see, it was tough from all my friends. When I look at some of the hardcore ones that don't cry and I see tears on their face, I know, yeah, this was a tough one.
Rensford mourned his friends, carrying the weight of their loss and his own recovery from abdominal cancer with those regular screenings. And did you also at that time just assume that you were being screened and monitored for other things happening inside your body?
No, I know that certain screening are very specific. I know that I am coming down to every 3 months to get a CT scan and some other stuff, and I knew that it was specific to my abdomen. Yes, they're gonna scan the pelvic, but it has nothing to do with my PSA level, and that's why sometimes I hit myself because I left my prostate.
All that research he'd done years before sat dormant in his memory bank until one day in 2024, when the pastor at his Toronto church circulated a notice to the congregation about a new initiative bringing prostate cancer screening to Black men in underserved communities.
Yeah, he sent it out in the group, a WhatsApp group. So when the invitation came out, I said, you know what? I haven't done this in a while. Let me go check.
It was a campaign called the PSA Detect and Protect program, spearheaded by Dr. Neil Fleshner, a surgeon and researcher at Princess Margaret Cancer Centre. His focus is on cancers of the urinary tract, kidney, bladder, and prostate.
The PSA Detect and Protect program is a mobile, effectively clinic where we go into the underserved communities and get men to get tested. Hopefully for an early detection of prostate cancer in order to save their lives and also to learn from a research point of view how to do it better and better the next time.
Now, this isn't some kind of big RV on wheels.
No,
You're driving from community to community.
No, we've thought about that, but instead there are these health fairs, and we set up like imagine a booth at a trade show kind of concept. And sometimes we go to churches or mosques and we do it there.
Dr. Fleshner's team partners with the Walnut Foundation, a Toronto-based organization dedicated to supporting Black men with prostate health.
It gives us legitimacy that probably if we were just a bunch of, white docs in lab coats pouring in with a Princess Margaret van may be seen as different. And there's a lot of history, as you probably know, around the Black community and experimental medicine and all these sorts of things. So, having that partnership helps us overcome a lot of that as well.
Where does prostate cancer rank for men in general?
It's the most common cancer in men. About 1 in 6 men get diagnosed in their lifetime. And it's the second or third most common cause. So about 3 to 4% of men die of prostate cancer. If you open up the newspaper and see 100 male obituaries, 3 or 4 of them is from prostate cancer. Once you have symptoms of prostate cancer, it's effectively too late.
Would you say you are finding men who have high PSA levels, specifically who would have been undetected previously?
For sure. Just to be clear, there's probably in Toronto right now, I would say 5,000 men walking around with metastatic prostate cancer that don't know they have it. And then there are men with little tiny tumors that may not metastasize for 10 or 20 years. And then there's a spectrum, a continuum of men in between. And I think what we're trying to do here is find the in-betweeners mostly, because those are the men who we think is going to die from it in 5 or 7 or 10 years, and try and find it at a level like Rensford, where it's really high. And I was, we were lucky with him because he had a high level that could have easily meant he had metastasis, but he luckily didn't. And try and cure those men.
So tell us, if you can, about this PSA screening program.
You could imagine that when you get PSA screening in Ontario, especially, it's not covered by OHIP.
That shocked me, actually.
Yeah.
Why is it not covered for something that's life-saving?
Because there remains some controversy around PSA testing, because we tend to find many cancers that do not actually affect a man's life. I know that sounds strange, but about 60% of men in their 60s, if you look hard enough, you'll find a few prostate cancer cells, and only about 4% of men die from prostate cancer. It's not only the $50 for the test. You got to take off 3 hours of your day. You got to go see a doctor. You got to go to a lab. But knowing men the way they are, I think they say, well, if I have to pay for it, it can't be that important, because men are we always assume the least invasive sort of option. because of our denialism
I was just going
around
to
our
say,
health.
this is really going to be a great conversation if you're going to also be able to explain men to me.
Oh, God. No, I can't. Well, let's make a deal. Then you explain women to me.
That's a whole other podcast, my friend.
So, when men get PSA screening in Ontario, demographically, you can imagine who gets it. Those who go to the doctor often, those who can afford the test and not even blink. So it tends to be disproportionately the more affluent people, right? And there's studies showing this. So you could look at like postal codes, because you can tell by tax rolls which are the less or more affluent communities. And there's always been a disproportion of men underrepresented who are not getting the testing done.
In the latest study from 2021, roughly 13% of Canadians in low-income households are Black.
By the way, many don't even have OHIP. Many don't have a family doctor, as you can imagine. It's a Canadian problem. So we do that. We test them. We do a blood draw, ask some basic questions, and then we review the results.
During that PSA test, what was going through your mind? Were you thinking about all those friends?
I did. And I think it's one of the reasons why when the message came in, I jumped on it. I remember making the time to go do that test. Their deaths, unfortunately, played a big part in me getting that test, going to that screening.
And they found what?
They found that my numbers are high. I think it was 7.59 or something like that.
And what should it be? I don't even know.
4 and change.
We found quite an egregious abnormal level because he was walking around with a bad problem unbeknownst to him.
Walking around without any symptoms. He felt fine. This was the upside. Early detection meant treatment could work. The downside? He'd also been walking around with something very dangerous inside of him, completely unaware.
That conversation actually backed me into a wall. There were a lot of tears. There were a lot of questioning, why me? I eat healthy, I keep my body fit, I'm the person that can run a 3.5-hour marathon, I ride 160 kilometers, that type of stuff. So why me? And I wanted to give up. Momentarily, I wanted to give up. Because I just couldn't imagine myself going through another cancer surgery. I couldn't imagine myself going through this again in less than 5 years. So it was tough. I consider myself a tough person, but there are some things that just floors you. And that did. I had to regroup after a while.
Rensford had a few options, either tiny radioactive pellets to target the cancer or surgery to remove the prostate altogether. And what does go through your mind when you are assessing the options? What becomes the most important thing to you in making that decision?
Survival has to be the most important thing. Survival. How are you going to survive? No, that's a decision that you, the individual, have to make. All right? Years ago, one of my pastors, who is no longer with us, said something to me at his birthday. We were all wishing him a happy birthday, and he said, everyone is wishing me long life. But what I wish for myself is quality of life. And that stuck with me.
Rensford chose surgery. Removing his prostate gave him a shot at avoiding radiation and chemo, just like with his abdominal tumor. Now it was all about healing, something he'd been through before. The long, steady work of recovery.
Recovery was recovery.
Slow.
It was slow.
A lot of ice.
A lot of ice. Mentally, it was challenging.
What kept you grounded through that challenge?
Well, that I had to get back. I have a dream of riding Alpe d'Huez in France. Always wanted to, and I still have that dream. And that mountain there, I'm going to conquer it, all 21 turns of it.
Wow. Is that like part of the Tour de France?
They use it in Tour de France a lot.
How are you now on the other side of treatment?
I am good. I'm not on any medication. I still do my exercises that I have to do because you no longer have that security over prostate anymore. So you have to make sure that you tighten all the muscles there to keep yourself intact.
You know, every woman who's ever had a baby right now is nodding, going, tell me what I don't know.
Men, on the other hand.
But it made it a new way, really, to understand your body, is what you're saying.
Yes.
To pay attention to your body, to listen.
Yeah.
Ongoing monitoring.
Yes.
You're clearly an optimist. I can tell that you're an optimist. How much do you think optimism is factoring into this latest journey that you've been on?
A lot. A lot of it. I'm also an opportunist, so I take opportunities whenever I see it. And I use it as learning, motivating me to help others.
So his own journey has now become a mission. Rensford talks openly at community events or wherever he can to share the importance of PSA tests and help other men protect their health before it's too late. And let's use your dear friends in this conversation. They finally were tested essentially when it was too late.
When it was late, yes.
They had full-blown symptoms. And how much are they a part of your thought process every time you have this conversation to try to shift the mindset?
Well, I'll put it this way. Late in the summer, past summer, we went down to New York, and a group of us, all ex-military, got together. And that was one of my things that I left with them.
Pretend that we're in the room here. Tell me what you say, what your message is.
My message was
to any simple. Man listening right now.
Go and get tested.
Even if you have zero symptoms.
Even if you have zero symptoms. I didn't have any symptoms. I just saw a message and said, you know what? I haven't done this in a few years. Let me go check.
How did they respond?
A lot of them were very positive about my message. They responded positively about it. I also brought up the fact that we lost brothers to the same disease.
Did you tell us?
I am not only, advocating for prostate cancer. I'm advocating for overall health.
100%.
Overall health. It's you. You have to watch what you eat. You have to watch, what your cholesterol intake, your alcohol intake, your tobacco consumption. You have to watch all that type of stuff. You have to take all that thing into consideration as to, okay, what do I want my life to look like 5 years down the road? Because we're all in our 50s, 60s now. What am I going to look like when I turn 70? Or if I get to 70, what do I look like?
When you were all together, did you toast those brothers that you'd lost?
We did remember them. We did spend time remembering them and remembering, laughing about some of the crazy stuff that we went through.
Is there something from them, because it's beautiful to sort of bring them right here in this conversation, that you remember most as far as characteristic that makes you laugh to this day? Even though they may be gone.
One would never be on time. And no matter how early he went to bed or how late, he would never be on time for muster. And nobody can tell why, because he was the first person in the shower. First person in the shower. Last person out of the barracks. Could never put that together, and I remember one that was so drunk that he couldn't stand at attention for long and just keep marching off. Everybody's standing there. Funny little stuff like that, but they were all good men.
So what would your hope be for someone hearing your story today?
To look at themselves in the mirror and ask yourself, am I doing everything for me and my loved ones? Am I doing everything that I can to be here? I mean, knowing you don't have control over your time, all right? But you have control over the things that you do. And are you doing everything? And if you can't answer yes to that, go to your family doctor and get that requisition and start the process. Because we all need to take care of ourselves. We all need to know our numbers.
You've been listening to Carry the Fire from the Princess Margaret, a world-leading cancer research center. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. To learn more, check the show notes and share this podcast with friends and family to help create a world free from the fear of cancer. I'm Lisa Laflamme. Thank you for listening.